Rugby World Rankings, folks, for July's second round of internationals in 2025. Some important results in terms of teams on the move with an eye on the next World Cup and the seedings related to these Rugby World Rankings. We'll go through the results at the weekend. How did they affect the spots on the log? Who's up and who's down? And who didn't move, and you guys can let us know your thoughts. There's a couple of teams who are in the boat of we won big but didn't get nothing, and I'm looking at you, South Africa, in number 1, and you, Ireland, in number 3. South Africa beat the Italians 45-zip, and the Irish put over 100 points on the Portuguese, winning by 99. And yet, if you've noticed, if you can tell, I've written both their numbers in blue for teams who haven't moved in terms of gaining any points in the world rankings. Why didn't they gain points? It's that same old story of if you're more than 10 points ahead of your opponent, you can't take nothing off them no matter the scoreline. So for the Boks and for the Irish, no gain in terms of world rankings. New Zealand is kind of the one team who did take world rankings points, and it didn't really have a massive impact. Like, they took some points off the French, but it doesn't really, it gets them a little bit closer to South Africa, but it's not like a key World Cup seeding spot. It's just slightly closer to first, and the French are now slightly closer to fifth, but not a lot doing between those two sides. The sides who really had important results at the weekend, I am looking at Wales. I've got your jersey on because you got a win. You finally broke your losing run. That win over Japan sees them back from 14th to their more familiar 12th spot on 74.05. Why do I highlight that one? Because the way they're doing the seedings at the next World Cup is in groups of 6. The first 6 teams are your first seeds, then the second seeds, then the third seed. So you don't want to be a third seed because then you've got to play 2 tough opponents. You'd rather be a second seed and in theory have a slightly weaker opponent on the side, or at least a better chance at it. So for Wales, getting that win, very important. Back in with the second seeds like Georgia and Italy and Fiji and whatnot. Speaking of the second seeds, Argentina are now down into the second seeding spots with their loss to England, second loss in a row. Means they've dropped from 6th into 7th. And Scotland kind of had a chance to pounce here if they had beaten Fiji. If Scotland had beaten Fiji, they could have potentially taken this 6th spot up with the first seeds, but they lost to Fiji. So Fiji is up, not enough to pass either Scotland or Argentina, but they've certainly closed the gap. And the big winner of all that is Australia, who are up on the rankings into these top seeds. Were doing nothing. Do nothing, win, apparently. Not because they gained any points, they just, teams now below them dropped points, which are now below Australia's total. So, well done, Aussies. Other teams have been the beneficiary of that kind of situation in the past. Sometimes it just happens, the teams around you lose when you're not playing and you end up going up. England is also a big winner with that tour over in Argentina because they were kind of floating around the mark of 6th as well, but now they're on 87. Like, Australia's on 82, so there's quite a decent buffer for England. They're looking relatively safe in that top 5, but 6th is still looking very competitive. 82.08, 82.05, 81.37, 80.50. All of those teams are still kind of in the hunt. Now, there's always a few questions which come up, like surely the Aussies are going to drop when they get thrashed 3-0 by the British and Irish Lions. Well, the British and Irish Lions matches are not going to have any effect on the world rankings because you only take points off other teams or lose points to other teams on the world rankings. The Lions, the Barbars, the AUNZ Invitational team, all those teams you don't take points from. So whilst it's a big test for the Wallabies coming up next week, no world rankings points on the line. So far from safe, but they're not going to be dropping out of that range anytime soon, especially seeing as a lot of the fixtures this coming weekend don't actually seem to be likely to impact the world rankings. Other results that were on, Romania got flogged by Uruguay 70 points to 8. That also saw Uruguay take some points. Spain beat the US, so they have passed the US. It was over in the US as well, so Spain is on the way up. Elsewhere, Belgium beat Canada, which was a bit of an upset, so both the North American teams ended up losing. So, yeah, Italy didn't lose any points, like I said, and yeah, Samoa hasn't played yet, but they are getting in action this weekend. Speaking of the other games this weekend, South Africa against Georgia. As long as South Africa win, No change to the rankings. Argentina against Uruguay. Assuming Argentina win, no change to the rankings. England against USA, same deal. Samoa, I've got Scotland at Eden Park here in Auckland, but Scotland can take a little bit from the Samoans, but not enough to make a real impact on the rankings. They would certainly be pretty heavily punished if they were to lose, as would England, Argentina, South Africa if they were to get massive upset losses. And New Zealand can still take points off the French. Not enough to catch the box, but they could just squeeze that gap a little bit closer. I think New Zealand can get into the 92s in terms of where they are in the world rankings. So, yes. Other questions come up with, if the Lions are playing, shouldn't like Scotland and England and those teams not be affected by the world rankings? Everyone knows the deal. When you schedule the matches, like England schedule matches against Argentina, knowing that they would lose rankings points and potentially risk dropping into this side of the table if they lost the matches, but they still got the wins. That gamble kind of worked out for them. For the Scots, they scheduled a match against the Māori All Blacks, which didn't count for nothing for the world rankings, and then a match against Fiji, which would have been a nice one for world rankings, but they didn't win it. So it seems like a bit of a punishment. But as I said, the teams kind of pick the matches. They're able to negotiate with other unions to choose who they're going to play, knowing full well that if you lose, same with France, when they send a B team, they know they're going to lose points if they lose the matches, even though they don't send their strongest team in July. So it just is what it is. The teams know the deal. Ireland scheduled matches against Georgia and Portugal. Didn't gain nothing in world rankings points, but certainly it was kind of a low-risk one from a world rankings perspective. But broader picture, better for the guys to get some experience. So there you go. That's the world rankings update for the second week of July. Like I said, next week's games, in all likelihood, don't have a heck of a lot of impact on the world rankings, barring a few upsets. But we'll see how things go. You guys let us know your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Think about joining the Patreon down in the description. Support the channel if you want for like $1 a month. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.